We must enforce our immigration laws, and we must enforce those immigration laws equally across all society. Justice has got to be blind. It can't play favorites, and I want to have hearings in the House Judiciary Committee over drunken Uncle Omar. That was a statement from Iowa Representative Steve King calling for Omar Obama, an illegal immigrant detained on drunken driving charges in Massachusetts, to be called to testify in Congress. And with us now is Congressman King. How are we doing today, Congressman?
Well, good enough. We're starting out a new week here in Washington. It's a bright day, and I'm sure that our prospects will dim as the week goes on.
That is the kind of cheerful optimism that we have come to count on you for, Congressman. Now, tell us, why do you want to talk to Omar Obama?
Well, I watched as President Obama's Aunt Zitouni Onyango, also evaded ICE. She was adjudicated for deportation. It was discovered that she was living in public housing, no doubt on the public dole, for years in Massachusetts. And the sympathy, the bleeding heart of Janet Napolitano decided to use an administrative authority to grant an asylum to President Obama's aunt, and it disappeared from the scene. Nancy Pelosi was the speaker. We couldn't call hearings at that time because we couldn't subpoena the witnesses. This time we have President Obama's uncle, and both of them, by the way, show up in his book, Dreams from My Father. This is Uncle Omar. I believe it's Omar Onyango, and he's mentioned in the book, but at 1.4% blood alcohol level, that's almost twice the legal limit in Massachusetts, nearly ran over a police officer. He'd been adjudicated twice for deportation, and he was in ISIS custody for 2 weeks until last week when they just released him on his own recognizance. We know that 84% don't show up again, and I'll just tell you that if preferential treatment has already been granted to President Obama's aunt, and I don't think that's in question at all. This is the same attorney, by the way, representing both of them. We have to bring drunken Uncle Omar before the House Judiciary Committee, drill down into this, and tell America what's going on. Justice isn't apparently blind in the case of Aunt Zitouni. Let's see if it can possibly be blind and deport drunken Uncle Omar.
Well, now, Congressman, these folks aren't hanging out for Thanksgiving dinner with the Obamas. He mentioned Uncle Omar and his aunt, but there's no close relationship there, is there?
Well, I would say there is. Not so much for Uncle Omar as it is for Aunt Zitouni. Aunt Zitouni, according to his book, was his guide in Kenya. She shows up time and time again in his book, Dreams from My Father. I haven't counted the times, but Uncle Omar shows up twice in his book. They reference him as someone who disappeared from Kenya, went to the United States and didn't come back, and they finally quit hearing from him. But he has been living as an illegal immigrant in the United States for years. For, I will say, approaching 2 decades, twice adjudicated for deportation. You know, if any one of us had a 1.4% blood alcohol level and nearly ran over a police officer, we would face the fury of the law. And the fury of the law here seems to be that the idea that the president in the White House somehow sends this magical potion across Janet Napolitano, and I think that she might well be poised to grant another asylum to another one of President Obama's relation. And, you know, if you're going to give people a pass, if you're going to grant them administrative amnesty, and this is one of the lead cases of President Obama's amnesty, what shall we call that, administrative amnesty that they've announced. They're not going to deport people that have dependents in the United States or have a relative in the military or in education.
This congressman is what people are saying is the backdoor DREAM Act, where the administration announced last month that basically what they would do is enact the tenets of the DREAM Act, as you say, military service, being in school, having relatives here, that those people would be essentially not just put at the back of the line for deportation, but exempted, right?
That's it, exempted, and that's the policy that they've announced. And not only do they announce that they're not going to move action against people that fit those categories. I would say it's a category called inconvenient. If it's inconvenient for you and you're in the United States illegally, President Obama doesn't intend to put you in the condition you were in before you broke the law. And that's simply send people back to their home country. That's not a harsh treatment. It's just like taking a bank robber that's outside the bank with the loot, and you say, sorry, you have to go back and get in your getaway car. We're going to let you go. That is what this amnesty is, and there are 300,000 in this country today who have been adjudicated for deportation. That, I presume, includes drunken Uncle Omar, whom they're going to go through all of those files now again and see if they can find some that they can, I think they'll find many, that they will exempt from the final deportation order. This is amnesty by any other name, and they will only deport the people that they're afraid of. And the next step along the way, if we're going to have this kind of lawlessness out of the White House, is then they will start deporting the people that disagree with them politically.
Now, this comes at the same time that some of your colleagues are pursuing an investigation into solar panel manufacturer Solyndra. The allegation there is that the administration was rewarding Democratic donors with favorable access to low-interest federal loans, and that the administration had extensive involvement with the company as it was rolling forward, and still went ahead with the money even though it was headed in the wrong direction. Do you think that that investigation is going the right direction? Are you satisfied that your colleagues are pursuing that aggressively enough?
Well, it started, and I have to give credit to the people that have led on this. I want to look into that myself, but it started. We've got to go deep into this. I don't know yet how far our committee staffs have gone down into the investigation, but I think you'll find political motives behind most everything that we see pop up, like this case with the solar cells. For example, when the administration shut off the guaranteed convictions of the most cut-and-dried voter intimidation case in history, and we all know by now that's the new Black Panthers in Philadelphia, they sent their Assistant Attorney General, Tom Perez, to the Judiciary Committee, and he testified that they got the highest penalty allowed by law. That was not a truthful statement before the United States Congress. He was under oath. And now as we watch this, they canceled an election in Kinston, North Carolina, because the majority of the people wanted to have nonpartisan city elections, as 70% of the communities in America do. It was canceled because, and this comes right off the letter written by Loretta King of the Justice Department, that people, African American, no, she said blacks, won't know who to vote for if there's not a D beside their name. So they canceled the will of the people, of the majority of the people in Kinston, to have nonpartisan elections, and ordered that they have to have D or R beside their name. It goes on and on and on. The built-in political bias that's part of the White House, and I'm looking forward to the 14 months from now when we get to change this. That's the best solution that we can bring.
Well, now, speaking of that, it just so happens, Congressman, that you represent probably the most important district in the state of Iowa when it comes to Republican votes, and your state's caucuses still scheduled for February. The race has changed pretty dramatically since we talked to you last. Rick Perry is shaking things up, and right now he's under heavy fire for calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Michelle Bachmann, Mitt Romney, and others are hard after him over this stuff. How do you see the race shaping up, and are you put off by what Governor Perry said about Social Security?
Well, the first thing I can say is Governor Perry designed his campaign announcement to step on exactly the beginning of the ceremonies of the Iowa straw poll, and postured himself as not participating in the straw poll. Meanwhile, he had a full court press for write-in ballots, and then came to Iowa the next day and announced his campaign in the very building in the hometown where Michelle Bachmann announced her campaign. That was Governor Perry's first stop in Iowa. He chose that spot, and I said then, that's not subtle. It may be subtle in Texas. It's not subtle in Iowa. We understand that. But this is what I'm looking for. I want to see where Governor Perry is on immigration. I want to see where he is on real tax reform. I want to see how he's going to explain what he would do with Social Security. It's one thing to call it a Ponzi scheme. It's another to say what you would do with it. And I know that another Texan, George W. Bush, started out in 2005, launched right out of the inaugural speech that he gave for his second inauguration, and did 30 speeches nationwide to try to bring Social Security back to where people could have a partial ownership. That failed.
Congressman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've got to run. We appreciate you being with us today.
Glad to do it. Thank you.